Welcome to the Crestcore Real Estate Hour. I am your host, Dean Harris. I'm with Douglas Skipworth. Thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Last week on the show, we talked about top mistakes investors made. Pretty impactful show, I thought. I mean, there were many. That was me. there were many of those mistakes I had made, and I see people make. So great show.
Yeah,
really good material and information.
Somewhat to lead into what we're going to talk about today.
It is definitely going to lead into what we're talking about today. If you have any questions on last week's show, today's, or whatever, dean@crestcore.com. You can check out the show on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. You can check it out. Facebook has the video. YouTube has the video, though, if you're more inclined to stare at us.
That's right. I got
a radio face. So thanks for you like that.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in. Let's dive into managing the manager today. You know, just to kind of sit back, what does that actually mean? You know, before we go into like some of the specifics.
Yeah.
People, you know, my first response when I tell somebody that is, aren't I paying for that? You know, yeah, sure. You know, that could be one way to look at it, but you know, you don't hire a lawn service or lawn crew and never check your yard.
And you're right. And the topic of managing the manager is a great topic. I think if I had to sum it up in kind of the headline, I would say this is kind of like for everybody. There's no such thing as passive income.
Yeah. None.
It's not. It's a misnomer. We're doing everybody a disservice by calling it passive income because that is not what it is. We would do better to call it, you know, active income and less active income or higher leveraged income, because that's really what you're talking about. Is you're hiring people to do work for you. Somebody's got to manage and oversee. You can't. There is nothing that is a set it and forget it.
That came from the oven guy, right? Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
There's none of that. There's no, and I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
There is no, hey, we're gonna buy and click. That's off. Just let me shoot
Imagine if you bought cryptocurrency. You know, do you just sit there and forget it, or do you watch it and see what happens?
Yeah.
Now, again, you need to manage. Maybe that's a bad example if you're going to hold something for the long term, but you got to have somebody who's watching the store, minding the store. And then everybody's got to have a boss all the way up the chain. That's why there are, even in publicly traded companies where you have workers, they've got bosses, they've got a CEO, the CEO's got a board of directors, and the board of directors has a shareholders. So it's like nobody just sits back and doesn't have somebody as a boss or somebody looking over their shoulder. So that's what we're talking. Some kind of accountability. And people always say nobody can manage a property as well as the owner. And there's a lot of truth to that. The owner just needs to remember that part of that is managing the manager, not going and collecting rent or cutting the lawn or
you've done
turning
both.
Yeah.
And it's just
you want to manage the manager. You don't want to manage the property.
Right.
There's a big difference. So
because you can manage the manager, and there is your one manager. Yes. Your houses are going to grow, hopefully, to whatever your goals are, and then it's going to be impossible to manage each individual one on its own. At first, I kind of struggled with, hey, should I hire a manager right away? And I immediately, it was one of those questions of should I? And within seconds, I'm like, yes, there's no way I can't. If you're building a business.
And again, I've said it. It's a regret I have, and trying to correct and help people out there that somebody encouraged me to manage myself so I could learn the business. Yeah. And it's just a low leverage. Again, we've talked about it before, hours, the dollar per hour job, and changing a toilet flapper or picking up rent or signing a lease for somebody or cutting a yard or showing a house. All of those things are low something you could pay somebody who's going to specialize in doing that. And you can specialize in the things we talk about every time: building your bank relationships, looking for houses, working with agents, finding the right property manager, on and on and on. Setting your goals, getting a vision.
Everything that we always talk about on here, it allows you to do some of those other things. And I knew this was, you're going to be a little more knowledgeable on this. You're going to have a lot more experience with this. I've only dealt with here.
Yeah.
And although it's a great dealing, like we manage 2,000 houses, something like that. So this is not a mom and pop thing that we're dealing with here. And I kind of want to preface this a little bit with our listeners. Like, we don't typically come on here and talk about ourselves, meaning our companies, and promote them.
Yeah.
And today's not necessarily about promoting Crestcore Property Management. You are going to hear Crestcore Property Management a lot because that's our experience and what we know. Part of going into this right away was to assume you've already hired and done some research on the management company. So let's talk about that briefly. And then I want to get into, when we say manage the manager, what are those things that we mean by that? So let's talk for a second. I'll give a couple to me. The most important things when you pick a manager. So we're going to talk about that first. What we're doing to pick a manager. Are they in the area, of course, that you want to be in? Are they handling the product that you're going to buy? Meaning, if they only manage single family properties and you're going to go buy a 50-unit multifamily, they might not be the right company for you. So that they're handling the product, and that they have good communication, and that the contract and pricing at least is presented to you and makes sense, right? Like, everybody's got, I think we'll go over some of these fees or whatever, but like, they're pretty standard, right? I don't think we charge anything here that is atypical of a property management company and their fees and their dues.
No, it's a market, right? So everybo's got to compete with the market, but it's how you position yourself and the services you offer to the market. And so that is mistake number one that are on the list of mistakes people make, is shopping for price. It's like, that's property management. You don't want to shop for price. You want to shop for service, quality and speed. Price is going to follow that. That's not really what we're talking about here, but that's
no, but I think it does go with it. I mean, you got to make sure you're with the right one, because if you're not with the right one, all the stuff that we're going to talk about here doesn't really matter anyway, right? You're it's like, you and I love analogies, but it is important to vet and to know that you're with the right group up front.
And you said it, as far as property types and location, that's very important. Yep. Another distinguishing factor, and we might talk a little bit more about this, is with groups of or companies that are set up as property managers to manage within their system, to be kind of what I would call the fiduciary and of the owner. There, an owner is hiring the property manager to manage, or it's more of you're looking for somebody who just to do your service. You can pay you at your beck and call and to do your bidding, and that's more of a functionary. It's more of somebody who is just a property coordinator, not a property manager. And if you're looking for a property, there are people who will do that, who will cater everything to what you want. And so but they're probably going to be very small, and they're going to be very boutique-y to serve you, which might be okay.
Might work.
But you just have to remember that if they're doing that for you, they're doing that for everybody. And if they're doing that for everybody, they can't scale their business. And so you might get placed out, or they might get fed up, or they might get other opportunities where your service lacks, versus getting in a system of somebody who does it this way, the same way every time, that you kind of get on board with their train, because it's on these tracks running this way. So there's a big distinguishment between the little boutique that'll do everything you want it to do, and the professional property management company that you jump on board their train and they take you to where you want to go.
And to me, that's the right way to think about the company you're going to choose.
Yes.
I don't, I think choosing, because we always talk about vision, right? We always talk about like looking down the road and making decisions now. When we were building the brokerage several years ago, we were like Dean and Douglas, let's make the decisions for this brokerage for the long haul. For the long haul. We didn't make any decisions early on for the now, even though some of that was painful, right? Okay. Yeah. And I'm just using this as an example, but in your own business, it's the same thing. I chose Crestcore Realty Park because I work here, so that's fine. But it also fit.
Yeah.
It fit my vision. It fit what I was looking for, which is over 100 properties, multifamily later, blah, 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 all the things that go with it. We could handle all that and I wouldn't have to switch. I have to admit, if we were just that boutique person, I probably wouldn't have managed here. I don't know that I've been working here either, but the point is I don't know that I would start that because my vision was not to have 5 and be done and have them cater around every single thing that I'm doing.
Exactly. I mean, there are people that makes sense, but again, that person, that shop, that firm, that company is a more of a coordinator. Like they are very much dependent on the owner to set the tone and the vision and the policies and make decisions. And I mean, you talk about having to approve things, I want to approve every application and I want to set the rent rate and I want to look at every rehab this and every maintenance that. And it just, again, there are some companies that will do that. They're very limited on how much they can service, and the owner is very limited on how far they can go. Mm-hmm. So if you're in that mindset, maybe step back and say, is this the mindset for the 3 houses I want? Or it's like, can I have that mindset for 30, 50, 75 houses? Probably not. You need to jump over here and say, hey, I'm going to specialize in these things and hire specialists to surround me that can do the other
so you
tasks.
can grow. There's your pathway to grow.
Yes.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to not choose that route, in my opinion. If you're going to grow and you're going to go with him now. You know what I mean? Like, there's no sense in starting over here and saying,
your goal.
Let's go over here.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
All right, so we chose the right property manager.
Yes.
We're on board. What are some of the things that when we say the word or the phrase, manage the manager, that you think of? My first note was daily income or income on the property. I wrote, check to see, what your rent has come in. In this process, you might be checking with your manager on certain tenants, why they're late, why they're not, working on a plan to get them to pay, that sort of thing. When you're talking about financing or the finances part of it, daily income, what are some of the things that come to your mind? That and what else?
Yeah, I like that, kind of piggybacking off that. It's like I'm probably running reports or getting some type of report, like you said, to monitor that, whether it's daily or weekly. More frequently than monthly. I mean, somebody could be monthly. Some people might choose to manage it monthly, but I think you need to be doing that weekly or daily. Personally, I have Thursday, as my day set. Like, hey, if my week gets away from me, I know on Thursday I'm going to be looking at my portfolio with a fine-tooth comb. So that is the day. Now, I might do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but I know if
you're doing it Thursday,
I'm doing it Thursday. So that's always good to set up that routine to do that. Mm-hmm. And then to have that, I guess, that routine to go through whatever the things you're going to do on that day to check your income, like the things you said.
Finding out who's late or who's paid and maintenance issues that have come in. Any potential vacancies that are coming up, any rehabs. I personally, I'm every day.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I'm every day on it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I try to do that every day. But like I said, if something were to hit the fan, then I know on Thursday I've got all day. And when I say Thursday, I mean like that's my day dedicated. I try not to schedule anything other than investments. Yeah. The portfolios that day.
To manage everything.
To manage it, to dive deep.
Which is extremely responsible. I mean, I think that is something that listeners should hear. I mean, this is coming from, and by the way, 20 years of experience, several hundred houses. This is something that you're doing daily still. So this is not just an initial,
for sure.
Hey, I'm telling you, this is what I'm doing at the beginning.
I was just in a conversation till showtime with somebody about a house.
Yeah.
In the portfolio about what we're going to do about the house, that specific house. Okay. And it's not Thursday.
And it's not Thursday. So that's great. So daily income, watching those things are some. Managing vacancies, if you've got 5+ properties, I guess the daily income too is if you got over 5, but managing the vacancies and seeing, what you can do about those. Talk to me about that for a minute. I don't know what your reaction is on this, but if I have a vacancy, it is the only thing that's in my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm over 30, right? So I don't have 3 and I'm pushing 40 in houses. And, if I have a vacancy, it's all I can think about.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all that's on my mind is like, I'm losing money daily on this.
And especially if you have obligations, if it's financed.
And
we talk a lot about mortgage. So you have a monthly obligation. I'm not counting taxes and insurance. You're talking about that monthly principal and interest payment. So you want that property to be rented as quickly as it can be, without jeopardizing, the quality of the renter, or the rent rate.
That's right.
So it's a balance. There's no doubt it's a balance. So that's what you want to get right, of how high is it, what quality, and how long can it sit on the market. So you're trying to triangulate that, to make it. So watching that vacancy list, similar to what we just talked about with the rent income, is looking at that vacancy. You want to have a routine that you go through or do it. So
yes.
If it's set up again on a daily basis, what's that routine? Again, on a weekly basis for me, it's like, at a minimum, I know that I go through that and look at the vacancies, pull the reports, see what's happening, what the rent rate is, how long it's been on the market, how long it's been vacant. First when it goes vacant, like the notice to vacate, we get a fair amount of renters plan to move out. Some just move out and forget to tell the property management company, but a lot of them plan. So you have a notice to vacate, so you can be ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And so you can be like, okay, this one's coming. Now it's vacant. What stage of is it? Have they got it rekeyed? Have they got scope? How do you keep that moving fast? Is it done? And watching that and keeping track on those, making sure things don't sit too long in any one stage in that process. And maybe there's a good reason for it.
But you need to know what it is.
But you need to know. You need to be. Yeah. You need to know what's going on.
Yes.
Again, there are. You just don't want to be surprised. You want to have the answers and understand what's going on. So just staying in touch. Again, a lot of this is through reports and portals online. You don't. It's not. This isn't saying you have to have a phone call. This isn't saying you have to go out and visit the property or fly in and visit the property. This is saying you can pull reports, review data, and just ask some intelligent questions if you need to.
Let's talk about that. Proprityware. It's a software, a business software that we use here.
It's an industry standard. There are probably 3 or 4 that are out there. Appfolio's one, Buildium's one, Proprityware's one. There's some others, but it's off the shelf, third party platform. Proprityware, we like Proprityware because it's used to be a large publicly traded company. They were bought for I think it was $20 billion. That company was taken private by a big private equity group that specializes in software. So, this is a hefty group that's managing this. They're managing millions of units on this platform. So that's like, hey, we're good. The data's good. The provider's good.
It's easy for me to get on. Yeah,
it's easy to navigate. Yeah. And for the owners, it provides a portal so that they can go in, log in, and see all of the information. It's a repository of all of the information. You got your leases there. You got your work orders and maintenance. You got a history of all the properties. It consolidates into income statements and different reports you can run on vacancies and marketing and collections, like late payments, everything. It's all kind of at your fingertips. Little bit you can slice and dice and see what you want. So it's a great tool that Proprityware provides that the owners utilize. And there are a lot of back end features that the property management company would get from using any property management software like Proprityware, where they can.
I think that's one of the advantages of our company, maybe versus some other smaller ones. When we're talking about managing the manager, you can manage the manager from Proprityware.
Yes.
There's you can get all of your information here. So I don't want to.
Good point.
I don't want to frighten everyone. When I say manage the manager, you got 10 people you're having to keep in touch with to run this. No. When you have all your properties here, you can go through Proprityware and manage the manager. And as you said, we're not the only ones that have this kind of software.
It's a good tool. Make sure, again, this is, like you said, not promoting. It's like if you're selecting property management companies, make sure they use this software, that you've got a portal and that they're utilizing that software platform within the company, right? That's a good question to ask as you're vetting them. It's like, hey, do you upload leases? Are the tenant ledgers on there? They get maintenance work orders through there? Do tenants use their own portal to communicate and pay rent? Yeah. So again, it becomes a huge database of information regarding your specific property that you can always go and check out
and find out what's going on.
Find out what's going on. Yeah, it's real time.
Yes,
because payments come in, work orders come in, work orders for maintenance, service requests, whatever you want to call them. Communication that payment related, as far as if there are issues talking with residents and people need to make comments. There are all kinds of information that is real time, as far as that it's got to be entered in there, but it's a communication system.
And I love it. I mean, it's easy access for me for everything. I mean, it's one of the, I mean, I lean on log in every morning, you know, every morning. My biggest feature, there's the live tenant payment. So it's great. Like I can find out live who's paid and who hasn't.
And then they got comments and notes on certain things. So it's like
we called, they won't answer, whatever it might be.
Yeah, they're paying next week. Oh, they paid yesterday and they're going to pay again next week. It's real good.
All right, so let's talk about this one real quick. Maintenance and rehab. This one is one of the bigger ones, I think.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right.
Well, I was just going to say, and they're a little bit split in two, right? Because maintenance.
Those are two separate things.
Yes, those are two separate things. Occupied property service maintenance and vacant property rehab, renovation, upkeep. Totally different skill set by the service provider.
Big time.
Managed differently by the companies. And if you would think about it, is one has a resident in the middle of it and one doesn't.
Yes.
So that presents a challenge and an opportunity with having
But you need the right person to do that. I mean, you got to have the right person to speak to a tenant. I mean, you just can't throw anybody out there. So maintenance and rehab is a big one. And they are two separate things. Maintenance is handled differently by different investors. There's a wide range of thoughts on this and opinions on it. I personally love the way that we handle it here. I believe it's set up for anything under $250 is handled.
Yep.
Along with quality of life.
Yes.
So what I mean by quality of life, if it's emergency, heat or air or plumbing or if there's some kind of issue, we're going to just fix it if it's a danger or whatever. So, quality of life, and then anything under $250 we just handle. Anything over $250 requires owner approval. I get an email. It comes in, 123 Main Street has an electrical issue. The socket won't work. Would you like us to send someone out or whatever? This one's got to be over 250. So whatever it may be, the tub's
here's what's happening,
whatever, and here's what's happening, and
here's the solution recommendation.
Do you approve doing this? Yes, sure. It has to be fixed. The toilet's clearly destroyed or whatever it may be.
Pictures provided.
Pictures are provided. That I do love that. I mean, it is great. It comes in and there's pictures and there's everything there. I believe that does the tenant send those in? Typically,
depends.
Right?
Depends. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they have an issue, like let's take a picture of that and send it in. So maintenance, to me is I think if you're an investor, you should be doing a better job up front. We've talked about the top 10 mistakes, so we'll roll this right in. I made the mistake of not doing all the rehab stuff.
Battlefield.
Oh man, $39.94 Battlefield. So not doing all the maintenance and not doing all the rehab. So I was stuck with maintenance, right? So you can eliminate a lot of this on the front end, but if you do have some, and it's inevitable that you're going to have some, I love the way that we handle it. Touch on just a little bit about maintenance department here, where we've grown and what we've come to from certain areas. Yeah,
we talked a little bit about that, and with the property management company, you want them to rely on. You're looking for high quality, you're looking for quick turnaround, and then the price will follow that. A lot of people invert it and go, I want the cheapest price. And you usually get a low quality and a slow time. And so what low quality and slow time does, when you're thinking you're paying a cheaper price, low quality means probably going to break again, probably going to have this issue recurring, and so that equals unhappy tenant. Potential rent issue with unhappy tenant, adversarial relationship. Similarly with speed, like if you have an issue and you don't get a contract there in a reasonable time, a timely manner, then you have unhappy tenant, which could potentially lead to payment issue. And so it's like, how do you get a high quality job done in a timely manner at a fair price? Again, this is a competitive market, so it's not, nobody's gouging anybody in a long-term relationship, which is what a property management company has with its vendors. Yeah. So such that the property management company is not the adversary of the owner. right? The property management company is the agent. It's a fiduciary duty. We talked about this before, being a realtor, that we've got a code of ethics. And so the property manager puts the agent, or as in agency, puts the owner above its own self-interest. So it's hiring contractors on behalf of the agent as if it is on behalf of the owner, as if it's the owner himself, and managing those contractors. So you want licensed contractors. You want contractors who are insured. You want contractors who are qualified to do the work. So yes to all that. To all of that. And you just don't want to skimp on that, because it just prolongs the inevitable of replacing or repairing something correctly.
Out of curiosity, how many calls on an HVAC condenser does it take for you to replace? Is it 2?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't have a standard answer for that.
Yeah, I wonder, like, if I get 1 or 2, it's, or the roof.
Right. Oh, yes.
If I get a couple on the roof and it's kind of bouncing around, like, hey, this time it was over here.
Correct.
This time it's over here. Let's
time
to replace it.
To replace. And again, I think what you're talking about with starting on the rehab and then here on the maintenance with the repair replace is, higher quality maintenance, rehab, repairs, replacements equals a happier resident. A
bunch of stuff.
Higher rent. Less repair down the road. So, I mean, it all works. It's an investment. I would not view this as like, a needless expense. Like, this is an investment that is probably going to lead to a higher rent, can potentially lead to higher rent, most likely will lead to a happier resident, which could in turn make them stay longer, pay more on time, because what you want is a tenant who moves in, pays rent on time, takes care of the property, and never moves out.
You're constantly juggling an owner and a tenant and keeping them at the same level of happiness.
As a property manager is. That's right.
Because typically if the owner's thrilled, the tenant isn't. And if the tenant's thrilled, then the owner isn't. So there's a toggle there to make sure that both sides are kind of equally as happy. And I don't envy. It's a tough job.
It's a tough job.
I don't, owners can really help themselves out by taking care of the property up front.
Yes.
We do. The company earns money off of maintenance. It's part of it, but that's not why we're here. We're not a maintenance company.
No, we have an independent contractor, whether it's an affiliated company or otherwise, that does it. Again, the two things I'd say to that is, first is we're realtors with a fiduciary duty to put the interest of the client ahead of our own. Secondly is the markup for that. You're talking about receiving the request from the resident, processing that request, sending it on or verifying it, sending it on to a subcontractor, having the contractor do it, review that work, inspect it, get it, bill it, pay for it, send it on. That whole process is a lot of time and effort. So it's for the money that you're earning on that, it's not the highest return work we do. It's the maintenance markup. And I would promise any property manager would tell you they would much rather have a tenant who does not call with the maintenance request that
big
month
time
than to make some money off of maintenance request.
Because it isn't much.
Because it's not pound for pound. It's not where you're making your money.
No,
you just would have a less personnel. You just have less administrative costs as if everything was maintenance free.
That's right. One other thing when you're talking to your property managers is leaning on them for advice on where to go, where to buy. Shameless plug. I think I'd probably do too good of job of that. I could probably sell more houses from just a brokerage standpoint if I just flew everything out there and said, hey, it's all good. One thing that I'm very cautious of.
Don't.
One thing I'm very cautious of is not sending out houses and not promoting a house that's in an area that I wouldn't buy in. And I'm not buying in any areas that are going to be difficult for my property manager, difficult tenant base, condition, overall condition of the community. I'm sending out houses that are in those desirable markets and in those desirable areas. So if you're working through me in the brokerage, you're never going to be in the situation of bringing in a bad house. Do we manage houses in areas that aren't as desirable? Of course we do, because there's owners that are there that need that help and that service. But working with, if it's not us and not me, going to your property manager and saying, hey, what do you think of this property in this area? It's not a bad idea. They're going to give you an honest opinion. Hey, Dean, we've got 4 on that street. Most of the people pay on time. There's no, you know what I mean? They can give you some insight on what's going on. Or they can also say, ooh, really tough market. Tenant base
more challenging,
is wild. More challenging.
They have a lot of data, right?
Big time.
That's how we need to make a lot of decisions is you get the data. What are the rent rates in this neighborhood? What are the pay rates? What's the maintenance look like on these houses? And so having, again, what we went back to before with the database that a property management company, and especially a bigger property management company that's been in business for a long time, I mean, they've got data about all kinds of stuff. Rent rates, what's happened with rent rates, tenancy, how long people stay in certain streets, zip codes, what maintenance is, what years the house is, all of that they can triangulate again or to calculate, analyze to see trends. And
sure, they can also give you market rent. Yeah. I mean, that's one question that you used to always answer. If I'd say, what do you think is your rent for over here? Well, I don't know, but leasing, I guarantee you, has a house right around there. They'll tell you what it's going to rent for. Yep. So that's one good thing too for our clients. If you're listening, and I always send out the rent-a-meter or rent.
Yeah, and I was going to say, it's good to have a range, right? It's not a point. I'm sure when you send out houses to potential investors, it's like, hey, here's maybe the kind of where you want to be, low, high or low, for a rent range or for a value. It's not like this house. It's not like Zillow, right? This estimate is it's got to have a big plus or minus. So this is kind of a range. So high, low, medium.
Okay, we talked about property where. What are some of the other things? This isn't really A through Z conversation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, this is one of those that can go off and go onto different things. What are some of the other things that you have on your mind in your notes from managing the manager after we talked about, because we've already discussed, and I'm sorry, we've found our manager. We're now checking our daily income, and we're checking and managing our portfolio. We're logging on to Propertyware and doing that. We know how our management company handles maintenance. We know when that comes in, that they'll get us rehab bids and help us go through that part of it. Now we're collecting rent and we're here. What are some of the other things that are added to there when you think manage the manager that you should be doing? Yeah,
and maybe these kind of filter in at certain stages along the way. One thing we kind of referred to but didn't spend a lot of time with, and you kind of mentioned with some of the expending authority and different things, and we've talked about agency for the owner. Mm-hmm. It's the property management agreement itself.
Okay.
So just kind of having a good working knowledge of that property management agreement. So you don't have to be an attorney, but you want to at least read it, understand what you're agreeing to and what you're paying for, so that you understand what you're agreeing to.
Do you get that a lot? Hey, we didn't know that.
It happens more often than you would like.
Yeah.
You really want to encourage people to read it and to understand what they're signing up for and the duties there, the expectations, just so people, I guess, trying to align expectations. That is a key, that the more you as a property owner, investor can do in working with a property management company to align expectations on the front end and make sure you have the right expectations and that the property management company does, will solve so many problems down the road.
Yep.
Because it's like anything, this is a relationship. In relationships, trust and assuming positive intent that the property management company isn't here to take advantage of you.
Yep.
Again, part of that is through the vetting process. If you're a owner who thinks the property management company is a necessary evil or your adversary, then
it's going to be that.
First of all, it's going to be that. And first of all, like you said, when this isn't Crestcore Property Management Hour, but in this sense, do not come to Crestcore Property Management if that's who you are, because that is not who we want to deal with. It's not a good relationship.
No.
So
yeah, because if you enter into here with that, you're going to have that mentality the entire time. The same client that says, "Hey, Dean, can you discount listing commission right away?" if that's the first thing that they ask me, they're going to be a problem all the way through because
they're going to be disappointed because you have different expectations.
Yes.
And so that just makes it just, and recognizing that on the front end is really good. So the property management can help do that. And then understanding the processes. What is the process when a house goes vacant? What is the process to lease a house? To rehab it, to lease it? What is the collection process? What is the monthly distribution process? Again, most of this is in the property management agreement, or the PMA, some people call it. But getting clear on that, and I think at Crest Core Real Property Management, they have like a little standard, like here's some information about how this process works. So you can do that, or videos, so you can understand that. But getting clear on that on the front end is really good. And then the last thing that I see that I would say causes confusion and hurts some in that managing the manager is not following the chain of command. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're working with a representative and with a property management company representative, work through that representative. And if you can't get what you're looking for from that representative, then ask to be escalated to the next higher authority, their manager perhaps, or whoever, and work the chain of command that way. Because for really two reasons. Here's where I've seen people mess up and cause more harm than good, and that is if they don't get a good answer or a timely answer, that they blast an email to everybody that they know at the company. They might even include you, right? They might include Dean, who has nothing to do with property management after you help them. And the couple of things that does is, number one, it's like if then everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge
because no one wants to respond.
Because it's like who do you defer to? Right. And so what typically happens is you end up everybody on that email goes, okay, who's the most senior person on this email? That's the person who we're going to defer to, right? Because that's who's included. But when you do that and you don't follow the chain of command, then that person is most likely not familiar with the situation. And let's be honest, they're probably going to mess it up because they're going to go outside of the standard process. They're not going to know how to actually fix it. They might cause more harm than good. So if you can be patient, follow the chain of command and work it, that keeps everything within the system and moving forward. Everything else is just like throwing a grenade in there, man.
And hoping for the best.
And again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is if you want somebody who's going to just drop everything and do it your way, you just got to think, if they're doing that for me, they're doing that for everybody else. And if they're doing that for everybody else, how in the world did they get their day? How did they? No wonder they can't do this because I'm hurting them from doing it. So that's again what I see as how you better manage the manager is to have a clear line of communication.
So if you're here and you're dealing with one of your district portfolio manager's assistants.
Yeah, the portfolio specialist or relations manager.
Specialist, and then go up to the portfolio manager.
And work your way up. But don't copy Dean or send it to Dean and say, hey, Dean, my house isn't rented. Because all you're going to do is circle it right back to put
your DPM on there and just say, hey, because I can't help. I just don't know any of those answers.
And here's what's even worse is if you try to help.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because most people want to help people.
Yeah, right? Naturally, my first instinct is to be like, oh, let's resolve this real quick. It's a simple thing.
But you have to step back almost like a parent and be like, hey, I'm really helping my child in this situation by not helping my child the way they think they want me to help them. It's like when I get a lead for somebody calls or emails me. Somebody emails me and says, hey, Douglas, let's connect. Tell me about Memphis. And I'm like, man, so great. Happy to meet you. Let me introduce you to Dean. This is what he specializes in. He is the man.
And if you guys notice, we don't give out Douglas's email in there. Because if you have any questions about this or sales process,
I'm immediately going to pitch the ball to you because this is what you do all day, every day. And it is not... I'm involved in it all day, every day, but my role is very different than your role.
Yes.
And so I can't provide that service that you do.
And it's not about you don't want to help or you don't want to deal with this. It is 110% about the right people helping you. the right person to
and
help
at the
you
right
do this.
time, man.
And
It's
at
like
the right time.
it's. I mean, we're sports analogies. It's like we have our position to play, and there's nothing worse than seeing a tight end try and come off and try and come back there and take the ball.
You ever seen an offensive line play quarterback? No, it'd be a funny sight, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No, you can't. You got to make sure you're in contact with the right people. And with a company our size, that is really important. I mean, it is really important to make sure that you follow that chain. So that is great. Good advice for any management company. But if you're here specifically, that's great advice. Anything else?
That's all. That covers my list, man.
Managing the manager is extremely important. I'm glad we kind of brought this in because there are a lot of clients that watch this now that know or that already own.
Yes.
They already are in the business and they're trying to grow a little bit. So I think this information is relevant, especially if you only have 2 or 3 and you're kind of new at Propertyware and you're new at how all this works. Work through Propertyware. Work through your portfolio specialist.
Yes.
Work through your specialist and then up to your DPM if you need to, your district portfolio manager. And if all else fails, come holler at me. I can get you there.
All you're going to do is reintroduce
But all I'm
them.
going to do is reintroduce that person.
Which is fine.
Yeah, which is okay. So great topic today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Guys, appreciate you tuning in today. This is it for the year.
Okay.
We do not have any more podcasts for 2021. So we will be back on the 5th. Is that the first Wednesday in January? So happy holidays to everybody.
Holidays. See you
Appreciate
next
you
year,
guys
man.
tuning in. See you next year.
Yeah.